Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 32 to 34 and 39 to 40. Moses tells the people, "Consider God's great deeds for you. The Lord is God. There is no other. So keep his statutes and live. Ask now of the days of old, before your time, ever since God created man upon the earth. Ask from one end of the sky to the other. Did anything so great ever happen before? Was it ever heard of? Did a people ever hear the voice of God speaking from the midst of fire, as you did, and live? Or did any God venture to go and take a nation for himself from the midst of another nation, by testing, by signs and wonders, by war, with his strong hand and outstretched arm, and by great terrors, all of which the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? This is why you must know and fix in your heart that the Lord is God in the heavens above and on the earth below, and that there is no other. You must keep his statutes and commandments, which I enjoin on you today, that you and your children after you may prosper, and that you may have long life on the land which the Lord your God is giving you forever." Moses is reminding the people of God's caring and merciful love when he asks, "Have you ever heard of God rescuing one nation from the control of another, as he did for us when he ransomed us from our Egyptian bondage?" Moses was forcing the people to reconsider their relationship with an all-powerful God, while in Egypt the people had witnessed the Egyptian idol worship. The Egyptian gods were always limited in some way. Not so with the all-powerful God of Israel. Israel has been blessed more than any other nation. In order to have a good relationship with God, Israel needs to obey his commandments. A life led in obedience to God's commandments will bring Israel the respect of the other nations and a long life in the promised land. Disobedience to God's commandments will not be tolerated and will mean God's power will be used against them. When we sin, there is always a price to pay. Maybe not immediately, but sooner or later a correction will come, as it must, from a just God. In the human family structure, we see parents issue rules or statutes that govern the children's behavior and or responsibilities. If the children break mom and dad's rules and they go unpunished, it will bring trouble, resentment, and jealousy into the family. In order to prevent this dissension, the parents must hold all family members responsible for obedience to the rules. Thus, they must punish the offender in some way in order to be a just parent. Commandments are non-negotiable laws issued by God himself. The book of Deuteronomy is a collection of statutes and commandments that Israel must obey in order to remain in the promised land without being harassed, invaded, or deported by other nations. The Bible documents the fact that every time Israel ignored God's laws, other nations or internal conflict emerged as punishment for those sins. It was through these bad times Israel came to recognize their sinful ways, their need to repent and follow God's laws. Don't you recall at some point in your life you decided for yourself it was easier to follow your parents' rules and avoid punishment or conflict? Moses' speech was attempting to communicate the same thinking to the chosen people. Live by the rules and remain in God's grace.